Hello and welcome to the Kimbley IT Podcast. I'm James, the founder of Kimbley IT, and Kyle is with me again. How are you doing, Kyle?
I am very well, thank you, James.
What's your job title this week?
Underboss still. I'm sticking with it. I like it.
Still underboss of Kimbley IT.
That's right. I don't see any reason to change that now, particularly. We've messed around with the job titles. Some of them were funny. I like underboss.
Well, underboss, tell us what happened in the last week.
What happened in the last week? Okay. Well, a couple of nice things happened to me that you're involved in some of them and you weren't in the last week. One was that we met with a couple of colleagues who were in our BitPro group, which is the other IT guys. And we met up in West Bromwich for some rather nice Indian barbecue and curry at the Vine in West Bromwich, which if you're from the West Midlands, you might know the Vine in West Bromwich.
Stop. Let's stop a second.
What?
Carrying on the podcast, but I just need to do the weekly reminder that a microphone works best when you talk into it.
Oh, here he goes again. Yes, I know. Okay.
One day you'll get the concept of a microphone and the way it operates. I don't know when it will be, but at some point you'll understand how a microphone best works. But carry on. Now just keep talking towards it though.
Yes, I will do now. Is it really bad when I move away then?
You can hear the difference between your voice.
Right.
You sound further away.
All right, fair enough. Yes, the Vine in West Bromwich. It's a pub in a terraced house in West Brom, but when you go out the back, it's a really spacious pub and it's well known for doing Indian barbecue and curry. We went there on Wednesday night, met up with a couple of guys who we've known for years in the IT industry. Nice to see them again, have a bit of a chat for a while, have something to eat. It's good, that kind of thing to do in the evening. Gets you a little bit of a breakaway. And on the night before that, I had been to an Institute of Directors meetup, which is a networking event. Now, those of you who listen to our podcast may know that we don't always advocate networking events because a lot of the time they can be a waste of your time. You never know who's going to be there. There's no reason because you go into a room full of anybody else that anyone else would be interested in what you've got to do, let alone buy from you. However, I was meeting with a friend of mine from Toastmasters who said, why don't you come and have some food first? We'll catch up and then we'll go to this Institute of Directors event and maybe you can see whether you think the Institute of Directors is something for you, Kyle. So I went along to the Shrewsbury setup of it and it was good. It was actually rare. I went into a room. It was mostly people in suits, James, which isn't usually the kind of people that we deal with. But on this one occasion, there were good people in suits. Good people in suits. I met some nice people. I met a few people I already knew from the business community in the Shropshire region. Had a good chat. And I'll be meeting someone on Friday this week to talk about G Suite, which is good. And even if it only helps one individual person, it helps one person from having crappy IT to having good IT.
This coming week, we're filming a client story. It'll be my first one that I've directed in 2 years. So a client story is where we go into an existing client and we record a story about how they have got the most out of technology since they started working with Kimbley IT, things that they've learned, things that they want to do in the future, all that kind of stuff. And it goes into a client story, which will appear on the website and on our YouTube channels. It's been about 2 years since we last did one. And I'll be going in with a camera crew Thursday to record it and build this client story. Probably normally do a few hours worth of footage, which normally gets cut down to a under 2 minute video. And sometimes there are extended and longer edits that go online as well. That can be up to about 5 minutes long, but generally it's about 2 minutes long and we'll build a couple of stories out of it. Some will be about how we've helped them with that technology. Others will be focusing on Google and G Suite as we're a Google partner. So we want to have a video about that as well to promote that stuff. And it's normally fun to film. People get a bit nervous when they're talking directly into the camera. So it takes a while for them to settle down and get the interview and the flow going. But once it goes, it's normally well done, really done well. Got two 4K cameras coming on site. Going to get loads of B-roll. B-roll is the key for when you're filming. You want lots of B-roll so you can do the edits nicely.
James.
B-roll is footage.
Thank you.
Because I know you wouldn't know, even though I've told you before, but we'll do it for the audience, for the people who haven't heard.
I know what B-roll is now.
B-roll footage is essentially establishing shots. It might be action shots of something going on in an office, and you can just cut it in and put the voices over the top of it. And it just allows for editing between people. In this client story, I'm aiming to have 3 people in it. And as we transition between the people during the story, we'll need some B-roll to go over the edits as the shots change.
Yes. You know something that makes me chuckle now, James? 18 months ago or so, 2 years ago when I first met you, some of the ways that you are with me, I would have been all softy, empathetic and taken it to heart when you do certain things, but I don't now. You see, for example, when I mentioned B-roll, then you're like, yeah, We'll say B-roll for the audience, as inferring that you'd already told me what B-roll is, inferring therefore that I'm a bit thick. I don't take it as you inferring, but I know you don't mean I'm a bit thick because you wouldn't work with me. See, that's the problem. I know you now, and if you thought I was really thick, you'd go, Carl, I'm not working with you anymore.
I've got a shareholders agreement now. It makes it hard.
Well, it does make it hard, but I know you. You're not one scared to get the lawyer out, so you would do anyway. If you wanted to do something, you'd do it. So that's the respite I take in your humour now, you see. Because if you were really winding somebody up, you'd send them a subpoena or some such.
You can believe what you want to believe. I'll allow you to believe what you want to believe.
I can believe anything. I'm smashed, James.
Exactly, most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's the easiest way to get through the day, I think.
Well, that's what I'm doing this week. You doing anything?
We're getting smashed. It's unlike you.
Apart from that, are you doing anything else?
This week, well, I'll come down and see you when you do some filming for a bit. I'm also going to meet up with Terry, who's been on this podcast on Friday, and I am meeting up with Legina Masala on Friday morning for a coffee. She's the person I met at the Institute of Directors meet to talk about G Suite for her in her business.
Terry was on the podcast 2 episodes ago, not the previous one, but the one before.
Yeah, that's right.
So if anyone wants to hear what Terry had to say, go back to podcast 31.
Podcast 31, there you go. But that's it. That's all, really.
That's good. We'll move on to our focus section, which is something I've been going on about for years, and you also agree with me on this. And you're going to discuss recruiting people and making sure that they can use computers before you hire somebody, making sure they're computer literate. And we don't just mean using bloody Microsoft Office, because that isn't a qualification to be proud of.
Yes, exactly.
It should be expected.
Yeah. What I'm talking about specifically here is when people are interviewed, or you see people talking about how to recruit and get their recruitment process and their strategy and all that kind of stuff, no one ever talks about any aspect of the person's use of technology unless that job is, say, in a computer company or a support company. If it's for an accountant or it's for a design agency or anything like that, nobody asks any questions at the interview. As you mentioned, you might see on the CV, can use Microsoft Office, proficient in Excel, all that kind of stuff. But that's been on CVs for 20 years. And really, if you can't find your way around applications and you can't understand the concept of, I don't know, recording a video on a phone and downloading it onto the phone and then being able to find where that is on the phone and then uploading it, putting a few tags on it and maybe an image and editing it slightly and posting it to Instagram, you're not really very computer savvy anymore. That's the kind of stuff that you need to be able to do without thinking about it, let alone using applications on a Windows system or a Mac.
Yeah, to help our clients, because we were getting clients that were hiring people and they were having to let them go very quickly because it turns out the people they're hiring weren't computer literate. After me chatting to them, it turned out that they weren't asking any relevant technical questions to these people that they're interviewing, so they had nothing to. They didn't know what they needed to ask, and therefore they had nothing to be able to base it on. So I wrote a blog post back in about 2016, I think it is. It's on the Kimbley IT website. That's still quite useful, and we send it out a lot to clients who are struggling to get the right people in their business. And it's essentially a guide of what sort of questions you should be asking people during a job interview to make sure that they can use it. And it's some of the questions are quite simple. This one: do you have a smartphone? Yes, I do have a smartphone.
And I think most people would probably say yes to that.
Yes. Okay, you've got a smartphone. What's your favorite apps that you use on it? Okay, quite a key question, this one is, because if they say something like Facebook, okay, that's good, because it means they've got the concept of sharing in their head, because Facebook's all about sharing. Likewise with Instagram, sharing photos and sharing content. So they've got the basic understanding of what sharing is and sharing content so other people can see it. They may also have some knowledge about restricting who can and can't see the content. But it's better than just being able to use Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel. There's other things to ask them, such as what type of email address do you have? If it's a Hotmail.one or a Yahoo one. Well, they're probably not that tech savvy, because you can't get Hotmail accounts anymore anyway. They're Outlook ones, so it means they've had that email address a long, long time. And we all know it hasn't got great features and it's not a good service. Yep. So it's looking out for things like that. Of course, we think Gmail's the better one. That if someone's got Gmail, then they've probably got a good chance they know what they're doing. And if they've got Gmail, hence you're a G Suite company, there's a good chance they might have experimented with some of the G Suite functionality that you get on the free versions of Gmail. Maybe they've used Google Keep to take notes and things like that. They may have shared a couple of documents in the past as well. So they've got a basic idea there. But it's going just much deeper into what people actually use their devices for, and it's learning about their personal devices, because that's where you'll find it. You don't want to ask them, what technology did you use in your last company? Oh, well, they use Microsoft Office. Well, who'd have thought that they were using Microsoft Office in their old company? It's about asking them what they personally use, what they use at home. Do they have a Chromecast? If they have a Chromecast, they then know how to share video onto a big screen. So in a meeting room, if you've got a meeting room that uses casting on your TV to cast, say, like a Google slide presentation or something in the web browser, they can do that. They know that basic technologies of the modern future.
Yeah, absolutely agree. You can't hold someone accountable by what they used in their previous business, because they may well not have been responsible for choosing it. So that's not their fault. It was crap.
Exactly. They'd be limited to what they were given.
Yeah. But you're right, James. The questions that you're asking there are some good ones. Another one might be, how do you back up the phone? How do you back up the photographs that you take on your phone of your family? If you've pre-led that with, do you take photographs on your phone? Yes. Do you take them with your family? Yes. Right. How do you do that? One, because it shows that they've got some idea of the concept of a backup, that something isn't just magically kept forever on a device, that they have some idea of its value of data, and that data value is important, which is something that all businesses and all employees should be aware of. I'm not saying they should necessarily care from the heart, but they should be aware that their employer will do and will care about how they treat it. And these sort of things certainly spring to mind. And I've never seen them come up in interviews. And I stopped seeing people who got interviews about 3 years ago. So it wasn't that long ago when I was meeting people who were coming to my previous company who'd had interviews at other places, and I would ask them stuff about what they'd been asked in previous organizations. So it strikes me that it's not going on, and we know it's not going on a lot because we've had it recently with people they've hired the wrong person.
So yeah, we get it in our clients, even though we give them guidance on what they should and shouldn't ask. You don't know what you don't know, so hence the reason we try and get this blog post out to as many people as possible. We know that they're going through a recruitment phase, just to give them a refresher on what to ask.
Yeah, and it's really difficult in the UK as well, James, because in the United States, they have slightly different employment laws to us. So if you make a mistake with a hire in the United States, you can fire someone in the United States pretty easily without any real reason for it. You can just go, you're out, you're not good enough for whatever reason. But the employment law in the United Kingdom and the EU makes it that if you don't spot somebody's inadequacies with the computer quickly enough, you will be in a position where you can't actually do anything about it, because you'll have to go through this whole disciplinary performance management route.
Well, you generally have a 3-month probation period, so hopefully you'll spot it in that 3 months.
You would hope, yeah. You would hope that you would spot it. If they were really, really bad, you would spot
because
it.
if they're really, really bad, they won't be able to perform what they contractually agreed to do. They won't be able to carry out their job.
Well,
so if you are monitoring them and you are monitoring them correctly in the first 3 months, you should be able to spot them and get rid of them. But even that is too late down the lines. You don't want to have to waste your time for 2 months with somebody who's junk and then get rid of them and have to go through the whole process again. So it's about learning in advance what to look out for.
Yeah, because it's an expensive business. Recruiting the wrong person is super expensive.
And I suspect the vast majority of recruitment agencies and agents don't even know what to look for and ask. They just see, oh, someone's got Microsoft Office on their CV. That's good. We can send it off to somebody, because they have no recognition of what is actually a required skill these days on a computer.
Most recruitment agents are just desperately bad. The right candidate is any candidate. The right job is any job.
Well, yeah, recruitment agents are essentially salespeople who it's just a low role, and just get as many CVs as you can, pump them out to as many people as you can, and try and get them to agree to hire the people.
Yeah, there should be more practical. There could be more practical tests for people as well in employment. If you're going to operate any kind of machinery or work in a warehouse, you have to have your forklift licenses, your operating at height licenses, all your health and safety stuff. Well, it's beginning to get to a point now where we need to have some element of that kind of data security, health and safety in how we use computers in businesses. And that's the responsibility of the employer at the moment to take that proactively and say, look, we have a standard, a minimum standard that any employee in this organization needs to know. And an interview, they may ask you questions, or it may ask you to do a practical test on a Windows computer, for example, that will give an indication of where your level is. Now, that doesn't mean they rule you out 100%. But if you're at 60%, then at least that employer knows, right, when this person comes on, they're at 60%, but they're going to need a lot more help to get them to the level where they should be. Certainly, I'm thinking here, James, of people who process finance in a business, not the financial director, maybe the financial controller or somebody else who works in the finance. They need to know what a dodgy email looks like, a phishing email. They need to be helped to learn this, because they don't. People, and I don't blame them in a way, because they don't see them every day like us techs do. We see them day in, day out, or we've just seen them for years and years, and we don't.
We use G Suite, so we rarely see them.
That's true. No, he's as much as anybody might say, oh yeah, he's plugging G Suite here. That's true. We don't. I don't see them like I used to, James, when I used to run systems with Microsoft Exchange. But you and I know what to look for in an email.
It's what Google Jigsaw has. So Jigsaw is the a security side of Google. It's part of the Alphabet company.
Yep.
And Jigsaw are the ones that released that. Can you spot a phishing email website?
Yeah.
And I don't know anyone who's passed it. Even we failed on a couple of the questions there. We've missed out stuff that is phishing, and we've not spotted it. And I've listened to many podcasts where security experts are on there, and they've gone to this website. And I've got a podcast called Triangulation by the Twit Network, Leo Laporte. He recently interviews the one of the high up guys at Jigsaw, who actually designed the website and the course.
Yeah.
And after he designed it, he failed it.
Wow.
That's how tricky it is to spot phishing emails. You keep talking, and I'm going to try and find that website so I can let everyone in the podcast know what it is.
Yeah, well, that's exactly a good point. We both did that test, and it shows you emails on your mobile phone, and it says, "What can you say whether this is a good or bad email from the basis of what it lets you see?"
Yeah,
I got 6 out of 8 or something. I got 2 wrong because they were really cleverly done, as the criminals do.
The website is phishingquiz.withgoogle.com.
Phishingquiz@withgoogle.com.
Oh, you failed on that as well.
I got an app, didn't I?
Yeah. Web addresses that have ats in them. I thought you learned that by now. If I'd known that, your probation period would have been over. You clearly don't know what you're doing. So phishingquiz.withgoogle.com.
Yep, I blame the bosses. You're going to put that in the show notes. It's a good quiz to do if you've never done it. If you're listening and you've never done that, have a go.
Yeah, just Google search Jigsaw phishing quiz.
Yeah.
You'll get it that way as well.
Yeah, and that's coming back to where I was originally going with this, James. It's about businesses seeing the importance in people managing data and using computers as important as how they would operate the forklift truck in a warehouse if they were driving it, because the resultant in that would be that you could seriously injure or kill somebody. And there's no difference with a computer. And I'm not suggesting you pick up the laptop and smack someone around the head with it to kill them. However, you might kill off your business by making a ropey decision. And the amount of ransomware stuff, that's where criminals encrypt computers and then ask you for money so you can get your computers to work again. That stuff is not disappearing. It's in the news constantly. And in fact, it will appear in this podcast a bit later on, because whenever I spot one of these, I like to add it in just to show people it's not going away.
Exactly. And these are all things that you need to pick up when you're recruiting people. You need people that have an interest in technology. So it's really important to ask them about their personal use of technology, because the problem is if you hire somebody who hasn't got an interest in technology, one, they're going to be way behind the rest of your workforce. 2, they're going to need constant training because they've got no interest in technology. They're not going to keep themselves up to date with latest trends in technology. They're not going to keep themselves up to date with new features that have come out for the software that they're using. And you're going to have to constantly train them all the time. If you find people that have an interest in technology, even if it's a basic interest in technology, they're going to be, over the long run, a lot cheaper to employ.
Yes. And what we mean by that, I think what you mean by that is, has somebody set up Alexa at home or some smart plug sockets with Google Home or something like that? That shows an interest in technology. I'm not asking whether they program in Python or anything, or hacking Linux.
And it's not just they're going to be cheaper in that you're not going to have to pay as much on training for them because they're not going to need it as much. They're going to be cheaper just because they're going to be more productive. They can actually use the tools, and they're willing to experiment and try new things out on the tools and not be scared of the tools that they are using.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're saying here is, if you're responsible for hiring in the business, or you're the owner of a business, and in your interview or hiring process, you have no questions about technology or computers outside, can you use Microsoft Office? Stop doing that and start asking some better questions about what people's phones are, what apps they like. Do they use 2-factor authentication? How do they secure them? Where do they back up their photos? What tech have they got at home? Have they got a smart home hub? Got cameras? Ask some questions like that and find out whether they're interested in this stuff.
I think that sums up that part nicely, unless you've got anything else to add. You're about to say something?
No, you're right. It did sum it up well. Well stopped.
That's what the host does. It's the job of the host.
Job of the host.
When you've got into the zone, you've hit the zone, and then just end it there with the people wanting more. So let's move on to the news section.
I can hear them clamoring. Yes, into the news.
Well, interestingly, actually, the first one that I've picked is to do with recruitment. So this is a article that's come out by the BBC. Could you do a video interview for your next job? And in here, they've done some statistics from they haven't said how big the amount of people were that they asked, but it says 45% of people aren't happy with video interviews, and almost 91% feel that face-to-face is the best. Now, when I read that, I thought, that's a bit odd. I thought people would actually like video interviews. It's quick. You don't have to travel there.
Yep.
You can talk to the person. It's got the technology. It makes sense. But then I watched the video that accompanies it, and actually I understand why now. If it's based on this video, if the question is based on this video, so this video is a video interview, but there's no one on the other side. What happens is you get a screen appear and it has some questions on it that you ask, and your answers are recorded and then sent out to people to watch on your behalf to see if they want to hire you or not. So you're not got any interaction with anybody. It's just been recorded and sent out. Now, I wouldn't like to do that, and I can see why lots of people wouldn't like to do that, and that's why the 45% seems to make sense, because there's a lot of pressure on you when you've got something being recorded. Most people aren't good on cameras. I know from recording client stories, and I know from my experience talking to cameras and yours that when we first did it, bloody hated it, but we've got used to it now. But these are people that probably don't speak to cameras on a regular basis, and they're having to sit in there and answer a question, try not to and ah too much, probably have a time limit on it when they've got to do their recording by. You've got 5 minutes to record your answer, because no one wants to sit through an answer that's 40 minutes long and things like that. And there's no personality in it, because you don't know how the other person on the other side is reacting. There's no back and forth conversation. There's actually one good point that came out, that a blind person is really going to struggle with this, because they can't read the questions to start off with, or they have to have a screen reader to read it out, and then they've got to interact with a video. They can't ask for the question to be repeated because the question's on the screen. It gets quite complex for someone who's got a disability to use this system. I suppose the only good thing this system is good for is for people who work under pressure. Maybe good for an air traffic controller, where they don't, because when you're talking to a camera, people naturally get nervous. They feel the pressure of talking into the camera, getting it right each time. Air traffic controller's job is all about getting it right the first time. You don't have a second chance as an air traffic controller, and you are working under pressure. So maybe that system of one-way video interviewing would work in certain job roles.
Yeah, I'd agree it might work for that. When I had a look at this, it suggested to me that this was a silly system for the adaptation of video to save people having to go to interviews and travel and all of that kind of stuff, and to make this more of a easy way for people in business to recruit remote employees, which is going to have to be the future, because there isn't enough time and space and inclination for people to travel as much as they did. And then this disappoints by making people talk to a camera, and nobody likes talking to the camera because it's weird.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with video interviews if there's a live person on both sides.
That's what I thought it was. The moment I saw it, I was like, that's weird, because why wouldn't they like live? It's face-to-face. It is face-to-face.
Yeah, I thought, okay, they must have asked a sample of people that are older who don't like technology, so they're not comfortable in setting up a video conversation and talking to each other. But then when I found out that, it's just one way, then, I joined that 45% of people.
Yeah, it's a silly thing. It's a silly thing that they've done it in that way. Definitely doing interviews over video, certainly your preliminary video interview, would make a lot of sense. Saves everybody traveling. If someone's really awesome, then you can bring them in if you want to. But don't waste your time if you don't need to. You can do it quick and easily over a video link.
So you've put in the news a article, YouTube introducing changes to give people more control over recommended videos. What's this all about then?
It's another one back to things that have bugged us with YouTube for a long time. You showed this to me first. It starts back with your Elsa gate. The inappropriate content that the algorithm of YouTube will propose to you while you watch videos, and how easy it is to get into, whether it be, if you're watching kids videos, into the wrong kind of stuff for children, or if you're watching a video about science or educate business and you'll get into conspiracy theories and alt-right stuff and InfoWars and all that kind of rubbish. YouTube are now suggesting they're trying to do something about this. They're now going to give you the option to not recommend this channel or this type of video when you see them appear in the recommended list in the right-hand side, to give you a little bit more control over what the algorithm gives you.
Oh yeah, I read that, and the algorithm's also going to it's going to reveal how it worked out, what it wanted, what is your next video in the queue.
Yes. We've talked about YouTube before and what they've done, and you've certainly been quite vocal on your thoughts on YouTube before, and their inability to protect certain aspects of its viewership from content.
Yeah, I think you've been more vocal publicly than I have on that.
I thought you put some stuff on Twitter before that just said
I've not put that much out about it.
Oh, okay, all right.
I know you've done videos and stuff about it.
I have done videos about it. Yeah, you showed it to me, and then I spoke about it. I like the idea that they're trying to do more about it. I hope it genuinely works. I really hope it's not lip service. I hope they're actually actively trying to do something so that people can't gear the system and get the wrong content in front of people. Because I love YouTube now. I watch it loads and loads, and I didn't used to. And again, after working with you, you started saying there's loads of great stuff on YouTube, Carl. And I didn't think about what I could watch, and now I watch
YouTube's full of great stuff, but it's the second biggest search engine in the world after Google, parent company. But again, YouTube is like Google. Google works if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah,
if you can work out what the crap is and what the good stuff is. Best idea is when we search for fixes for computers, we're able to see which is the good stuff to follow and which is the stuff that's not going to get you anywhere. YouTube's the same. You do a search for maybe the Holocaust or something like that.
Yeah,
you have to work out what is actually good, which is good content that's very verifiable and truthful, and which is a bit what's going on here. Very stuff. And unfortunately, lots of people don't have the ability to make those decisions.
Yeah, that's a fair enough point, James. You're absolutely right. I can't argue that that's not correct. You've got to know how to sift the results. I spotted this article and I thought, well, if YouTube are trying to do something more to help those who are perhaps fairly decent at spotting stuff, but not always so good, it gives them the opportunity maybe to filter out some of the stuff they don't want to see and help them see more of the stuff that they do want to see. So I thought that was a good move.
In the next article, I've got some really great news for everybody. It has just come out today.
Yes.
And it is mobile users can switch providers with one simple text. So, when you change mobile phone networks, you always have to ring up for a pack code.
Yes.
And you always get booked through to retentions.
Yes.
And they'll talk to you for about 20 minutes before they give you the pack code. Like when I recently swapped from 3 to gift-gaff, it was probably 40 minutes it took to get the bloody pack code because I went through one retention team and they said, at the end, they would give it me after me asking hundreds of times. And then they put me through to another team to issue the back code. And then they have another go at trying to keep hold of you. And it took 40 minutes to get a pack code for them to do it. But now you can just do it by text message. So if you want to get a pack code, if you're thinking about moving networks, want to keep your number, all you need to do is text the words PAC, in PAC, capital letters, to 65075. And then the existing provider will respond by text within a minute. You will then be sent a text code, which will be valid for a pack code, which will be valid for 30 days. It's on the BBC website, and it has just rolled out today by Ofcom. So no more having to deal with retentions. You just send in your text, and you'll get your pack code, and then you just give it to your new network. Brilliant.
It is brilliant, James. For once, a regulatory industry, the regulator doing some good work there.
Well, there's a few that do it. You've got to say like, what's the gas and electricity one's called? Ofgem.
Ofgem.
Well, they made it so you could just go through switching sites very easily. You didn't never have to contact your old provider anymore. You just go there and it's all done for you. And that was because of Ofgem pushing that through. And Ofcom's done a great job here with making the one thing that everyone hates, because the vast majority of people keep on their mobile contract for far too long just because they don't have to go through the hassle of getting a pack code. I did that with 3. I was on 3 for way too many months just because I didn't want the hassle of having to call them up knowing it's going to take it, an hour or whatever to get the pack code. Turned out to be 40 minutes, which is still bloody bad. I should just be able to text and just tell them I want the pack code, send it to me. I shouldn't have to justify my move to anybody, no matter how ridiculous my move is.
A whole load of people now in jobs going, that's my job, it's scuffed.
Yeah, it's good. It's good because they don't deserve the job.
I agree, James. Yesterday, I saw my mum and dad yesterday, and my dad hasn't changed off Vodafone for a while. His phone's really old, and he needs a new phone. So I was looking at second-hand phones, refurbished phones, and I found loads of nice ones that he can have, and it won't cost him a lot to own the phone. And the reason he hadn't changed off Vodafone is he can't stand this stuff. He doesn't want to ring them because I don't want to talk. He just can't stand it. He'll love this. He can
brilliant.
Get a code, and he's allowed to change, and I can move him to gift-gaff. I help him move to gift-gaff online with that code without him having to talk to anyone and give him a load of the grief, which he doesn't want.
Yeah, because I think gift-gaff is the only network that even before this, you could just go on the website and request a pack code and they just give it you.
Yeah, that's why I stay with gift-gaff. I like how they do things.
But everywhere now, so you're open to fantastic deals now. Because if say T-Mobile has got a really great deal, I no longer have to ring up O2 and request my pack code. I can just go straight and get the pack code and go to T-Mobile, and then in a year's time, O2 might have a better deal. I can go back and just get the pack code without having to talk to anybody who's trying to retain me.
Yep. And this is an interesting way of showing that in business you can get thrown a curveball at any time. You never know when the game rules are going to change on you. And this will be a big changer for all of those people now, because it's removed that ability for them to have that last chance to twist your arm.
Final item in the news is your article about police suspend work with major forensic firm after cyber attack, and this is from the Guardian.
It is.
Tell us about it.
I'm not a granular reader generally. I was looking around for interesting news stories around ransomware because I like to reiterate this every week in the podcast. And here's another one. The police were dealing with an organization that does private forensics for them, and they've had to cease working with them because that company's had a ransomware outbreak that's knocked out half the computers in their network and means that they can't produce the forensic requirement for the police force. That means 50% or so of all their casework is now held back because of this one company's ransomware incident. And it goes to show once again, this is an organization that provides forensic research of equipment on behalf of the police force, and they've been hit by ransomware, which just shows
the police.
No one's caring and no one's listening.
And the police haven't got a great system because they seem to have all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
And they should be having other companies as well.
Yeah, that wasn't even to mention that aspect, James, that the police have done that. Have they got all their eggs in one basket? Is there not enough competition in this market? Is it easy for one company to dominate this sector? Is it a, like in a government agreement that they just get one company to work with? Who knows on that? That's not explained.
They process 70,000 cases per year, including murders and terrorism offences.
Yeah, and what this shows now is that public safety will be put at risk because of this ransomware outbreak, because the police can't use this company. And how many more organizations have got to get wiped out by ransomware before IT people, and you are, start doing something about this?
It does actually suggest that they might use other companies as well, but it just says the other private providers do not have capacity to take on all this extra casework, which could mean significant delays in forensic testing and court cases.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I put it in there again, and I'll keep putting it in week after week. As these ransomware happens, I'm going to keep putting it in there until people start listening. Damn them.
Well, that's like your semi-rant in advance of your main rant, which this week...
ranty, but it isn't in advance of my rant, although my rant isn't necessarily that ranty.
No, it's not really that ranty, but it is about till receipts and just receipts in general, I'd imagine.
Yeah. I've started recently using my phone now to pay for as much as I can do using contactless. I like using the phone because it's more safe than my card, because it has a pin on it, so you can't pay for something unless it's unlocked, which is safer than the card that's in my wallet. But as I'm doing this technological stuff, and you're going, right, you're up to date and everything, I see the till receipt comes out of the machine and it gets handed to me. And I do what 99.9% of everybody else does, is throw that till receipt into the bin as I leave the store. When I was in Lidl today, Lidl have a specific bin as you leave the store for the receipts to go into. I appreciate Lidl are saying, don't throw them in the street outside, don't litter outside Lidl, put them in the bin because we know you don't want them. So why are they giving them to us? I don't understand, James, why there isn't some deal that's been made between the card payment providers or the supermarket, so that when we pay on a card or a contactless, it can't be automatically added to an account in the same way that a club card is, like with Tesco, my club card, my points, or that they don't have that either. You can have a little club card that does the receipt for you. I know you'd have to sign up for multiple supermarkets, but surely this would wipe out the need for these receipts, the paper waste, the paper making, the receipt printers, they're running out of the print, all this kind of stuff. Receipts have been around since I was a kid in the 70s. It just seems like something that hasn't moved on.
Yeah, I was just actually, while you were talking about that, I was just doing a search to see if a till receipt is a legal requirement, but it doesn't seem to be.
Well, you know,
Co-op is planning to stop issuing till receipts for purchases of less than £10 in a move that will slash the number of till rolls it uses.
I've been to Argos or Halfords, right? They're two that jump to mind. They both say, do you want an electronic receipt? And you can get one. Now, you have to give your email.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't want that. I want that receipt to be associated with my Google Pay account or whatever I use on my phone at that point in time. So I don't even have to think about it. It's automatically put in.
Yeah, there's no excuses for that because I bank with Monzo, and the Monzo app will tell me exactly who I've spent money with. So Thursday, 7th of February, McDonald's at Black Soils Road in Redditch. I can add a receipt to it. It just tells me the full amount. It doesn't tell me exactly what I bought. So it would need to have a bit more advancement on that to tell me what I actually purchased on that. But I guess that's a data protection thing. And I'd have to sign up and agree to have that information sent through.
I've got no issue with the idea that I have to agree to sign up to this with either a provider or the supermarket, whichever one it is, that I agree to it. That's fine. But surely it's going to, in this age of ecology and David Attenborough on stage at Glastonbury saving the plastic and all this kind of stuff, why we there's all this electricity and power and paper and production and waste going on with till receipts all over the world every second, and it's a waste.
I'm just found an article on the Wired. The UK's 11 billion yearly receipts are an environmental nightmare.
Yeah.
So apparently thermal paper, which is the shiny ones, which receipts are printed on, they are coated in a substance called bisphenol A, BPA, or it's lesser known but also harmful substitute BPS. Both react to the heat from a printer head to produce the numbers and letters on the paper.
Right.
Both have been banned. Both have been banned from other plastic products such as slippery. They've been banned from slippery cups and water bottles because they are harmful when ingested in large amounts. And other things, they can disrupt the hormone balance in the body, causing infertility and other problems. Research suggests that both substances linger in the body for months, which means that mere traces can accumulate and do plenty of harm. They can also be absorbed through the skin and stuff like that. And thermal paper cannot be recycled.
Right. So they're even worse. Don't eat receipts. Number one, don't be eating them. And number two, they can't be recycled. So all this paper.
It's interesting as well, considering the government has just passed a thing to be, carbon neutral by 2050.
Right. Okay.
So they're all going pro environment, but they haven't stopped these receipts.
No. Maybe we should put that up. Is that a good article? Should it go in the show notes, that one?
Yeah, it's the Wired. The UK's 11 billion yearly receipts are an environment nightmare from November 2018.
11 billion. You know, it's one of those things, James, you know, when you look back in history and you say, oh, if only I'd thought of that idea, you know, if only I'd thought of eBay or Craigslist or something. When you look back at them, they were quite simple concepts. I'm not saying they were easy to do, but the concepts of what they were quite straightforward. And somebody solved the problem and it suddenly became a multi-million-dollar industry or whatever. And I think every time I see a till receipt, I'm looking at a potential there for someone to revolutionize the world with something that replaces that. And I see it and I think, I'm not an engineer. I don't know what it is, but that has to be something that will suddenly change.
Yeah, for sure.
Record now. I might not get anything out of it, but I said it.
In fact, you do have a digital receipt. So if you're using Google Pay and you go on that, it's got far more details about the purchase. So it tells me which credit card I used to pay for it, the time, the date. Doesn't tell me the items, but it gives me a good amount of information that's required.
I've gone into mine now for Lidl today, and I get the time, and I get the card it used, and I get a rough approximation as where I was geographically.
Yeah, and the amount of money you spent.
Yeah, and the amount of money that I spent. Yeah,
but that could have more details on it.
I tell you where I want it from, though, James. This is what I was thinking. I bought some headphones a while back from Argos, and when I returned them because they broke the first time, they gave me a digital receipt at that point. I must have been off my head, smashed, I'm sure. I was probably smashed, James, and I gave the wrong email address, must have done, because I can't find the digital receipt. So I now can't replace the headphones, even though they're broken. And what I want is the ability to have a receipt that I can then take to the store for a return as well. So the receipt needs to be capable of doing that.
Yeah, you just add a QR code to it so they can scan it.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying it's a difficult thing to do. I've noticed here that I've bought a coffee in Moseley at Damascena in Moseley, and that contains more information that it's pulled out of Google Maps. So it seems to be to do with the map. I'll give you a bit more information as well.
Yeah, there are some solutions that retailers can use. There's the one called Flux,
right,
which is trying to get stores and shops to stop using paper receipts and, of course, use their app instead. But it's the same concept. It just has a proper breakdown. It's a digital receipt company,
I see.
And it's an add-on that stores can purchase and then add to their till systems.
I see. Okay.
Well, there are people out there trying to fix it. But like this article says, it just needs people behind it to push it. You had the focus on plastic straws was only done by a small group of people, but it's everywhere now. Everyone got on board, so it's just something that needs to be done with receipts as well.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I've just had a look at Flux now, and I can see if you use Monzo, do you like KFC, James?
Not particularly. The chips aren't very good.
No. Okay. Well, I was only going to say, if you went and got a KFC and you're on Monzo, that looks like you will use their product.
What do you mean?
Because on Flux's website, it says that they are trusted by KFC and it's available for banks like Monzo.
Oh, okay.
So by that's making me think that if you use Monzo and you purchase at one of their retailers, it's going to use that system.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to look more into it. I might have a look more around their website.
Yeah, Flux is intermediary between the bank and the shop to get more details onto your digital receipt.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. There's got to be an intermediary in between it. I understand that. But as you've said, it's definitely up there with the plastic straws. And I'm glad that someone's starting to deal with it. I feel better about ranting now.
So recommendations. You've mentioned something called Defunct Land.
Yes. You might notice that I've got 2 recommendations this week, both of which are related to the same thing, which shows that I suddenly got an interest in old theme park rides and hit YouTube up. And there's a channel called Defunct Land, in which this guy does 15 to 20-minute videos about theme park rides from around the world, mostly in America, that are now defunct or no longer exist at the theme parks where they originally were.
Yep.
And for me, because I first went to Florida in 1994, and most of the good stuff at Universal and things opened in 1989, 1990, I rode a lot of the rides that no longer exist. For me, this was really interesting little documentaries, slightly humorous, slightly tongue-in-cheek in the way that they do them, and interesting. And the guy goes on to do TV shows as well, defunct TV shows, and I quite like his work. And it's not got hundreds of thousands of followers at all, but it's a great example of somebody putting together videos, making some effort, and telling some stories that I didn't know.
And Podcast the Ride?
Podcast the Ride is a similar sort of thing. 3 guys discuss rides from American theme parks that no longer exist. And as ever, they mostly go in on Universal and Disney. And for me, having ridden those rides many times in the 1990s, it's interesting to find out the history and this changes in the ride, things like that, and all that kind of nerdy stuff that if you're into something you like, and I like it.
I've got my recommendation is actually a podcast that I came across called the MJ Cast, which is all about Michael Jackson, by Michael Jackson fans, for Michael Jackson fans. It's very interesting because Michael didn't really put much out about his life and his works and how he developed his songs and where they came from. He did do an autobiography in the early 80s called Moonwalker, but apart from that, there was nothing else that came out. So the MJ Cast, they're basically going around interviewing all the people that he worked with in the past, like sound engineers, producers, all those kind of things. And it gives you a good history of the songs that he released, how they came about, some of the songs that he worked on for like 30, 40 years before they were released, many decades. They've been through many album sessions before they were finally put onto an album. They talk about songs that haven't been released, that are still in the vault, yet to be released, and just his whole process of making music. It's a highly interesting podcast so far.
Okay.
So for any Michael Jackson fans out there listening to this podcast, that's the podcast you should subscribe to.
Yeah, sounds good.
That's it for this week.
Yeah, I don't think I've got much else.
No, well, we've reached the end of the show notes, so you better not.
No.
Screwed if you did.
No.
So there we go. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll come back and speak to you next week.
Yeah, well, then leave them with that. Is that it? We're just walking away. Nothing. We don't tell anybody anymore now. We just accept that they'll know who we are and where to find us, or we're not going to bother with that rubbish.
They know where to find us. They're already listeners. Just tell your friends to sign up.
You know what this is? You know what this is?
From the locations that you signed up from.
We're not going to tell you where to find us because this is our podcast test. This test is so good you are using your computer. The company's name's Kimbley IT. It ain't that hard. Thank you very much.
Speak to you later. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.